Hello, it is a dark episode for March the 9th, 2023. I have been reading a book about Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, the children's educator, entertainer, Mr. Rogers of It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Won't you be mine? Couldn't you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor? Um, and it's been an interesting book. I mean, I'm sure it leans hard onto the deification of someone like Mr. this of Fred Rogers, but there's something also kind of a purity, a kind of a sense of mission of the man, a sense of directness, a sense of just like trying to boil things down into ways that children will understand, both intellectually as a child, but also emotionally as a child, like, and really invested in the emotional state of coming to children on their own terms, which, I mean, it makes a really good argument for the fact of something done truly well can be quite profound, regardless of what that is. And I mean, I'm sure Fred Rogers would argue that reaching children and talking to children and helping children is got to be um, one of those really, really important things. Um, One of the most important things in life. I guess and we've been reading through, and there's, his his upbringing, his life, his time on television, um, him dying of stomach cancer, all that. Kind of lightly going over the fact that he had children who seemed to have had their own demons and difficulties, which maybe hints to a more complex picture of Fred Rogers being out there. But there was just this one story that we had tonight, which was a fellow in college who had just lost his grandfather, not recently, and was feeling really, really down about it, and happened to wander across like a common room which had Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood playing in it. No one else was there. Um, and he found himself just watching the entire episode and feeling a bit of kind of comfort from that. And then a couple of days later, actually bumping into Fred Rogers as he was probably doing one of his commencement speeches or something like that he was doing in kind of a later era, and thanking him and mentioning this, and they sat down and they talked for a while, and you know Fred Rogers still kind of being very much kind of that person who can kind of very directly kind of come in terms of people. Like, it seems like he could actually do this with adults as well, um, and just saying, like, that's one of those things. If you love someone, you're always going to miss them. And him saying about him as an older man talking about how he had lost his grandfather, called Ding Dong, 50 years ago, but that he still missed him every day, because he loved him. And it was one of those things I thought about, and it's like all the kind of issues and problems I'd had with my parents, my mother, Pat, and my father, George, and you know all the difficulties. But yeah, I lost my father when I was in my late teens, and my mother not that many years ago. But there is a sense in which I do miss them because I love them. And it's one of those kind of simple but profound things to think about, because you know, I've spent a lot of my life trying to deal with um, the legacy of those two people. Um, I guess the part of that legacy is just my existence, but also part of it is you know, somewhat maladapted ways of how I deal with the world. Um, and that can kind of, you can lose track of the fact that I also loved those two people. I loved my mother, I loved my father. You know, can still do that and still have lots of other problems with them, but I love them, you know, and that's one of those kind of key fundamental things, and is a part of, I carry them around in me, and a part of what I carry around is that love, um, which, you know, is actually kind of a comforting thing. It's like there is a positive thing there. I am hopefully a positive thing that I carry out from the union of my mother and my father too. I like to think so some days. Yeah. So yeah, that was just a thought. One of those lessons from Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day in our neighborhood. More videos later.